what we wanted to do is just kind of backtrack a little bit, talk about New York, reflections from New York, feedback that we got from New York, and then what we've done leading up to this point for the Olympia. The focus of this prep for us is to win, and nothing short of that, you know, and I'll stand on that. When he opens up in that front double, it captures everybody's attention, and then when he turns around and does the back double, once again, he steals the show.
Yeah.
Sacrifice is a big part of success, and sacrifice is a big part of obviously accomplishing great things, but at what cost, you know? And I think as of late, I've really started to realize what that cost looks like. And, you know, those are things that I can't get back. So you would think that I would learn from that, but I don't think that I really did. Shout out to RA Optics for our awesome shades.
Yep.
We'll just have them on the table here because they're that awesome.
Yep.
Also have my phone right here.
I got roasted for wearing them.
It's all right. Better for it.
Mic check. Hi. 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 Hi.
Check, test. Check your test.
Check.
Mine's definitely low. What's up, guys? I am here with Nick. We are doing an impromptu podcast today, and we really just wanted to kind of give you guys, I feel like a lot of this information is out there, but it's not out there on the Raw channel, and we both, as a team, you know, as we're in this together, we want to start just giving you guys a lot of information specific to Nick, specific to his prep, the Olympia in general. You know, this is still, to this day, regardless of my schedule, and the busyness of my schedule, this is still our Super Bowl, you know, and this is something that this is all Nick prepares for all year long. And this is still the highlight of my year from a coaching standpoint. So what we wanted to do is just kind of backtrack a little bit, talk about New York, reflections from New York, feedback that we got from New York, and then what we've done leading up to this point for the Olympia. And I realize this is kind of, you know, there's a lot of time gap that's happened here, but what we'll try to do here is catch you guys up to speed. And then based off of how Nick's feeling, which right now, I will say he's still in very good spirits.
Yes.
Very good spirits. And his energy's high. So we'll try to do maybe 2 more of these before we leave for Vegas. And we are going to leave the Sunday prior to the show. So that'll be 5 days out. So we'll just kind of give you guys a synopsis from New York through now in terms of the X's and O's, in terms of the emotional side, the mental side, the physical side, preparation-wise. And then we'll try to kind of follow up on this another 2 times before we leave for the Olympia. And then we are excited. We're going to be doing a lot of content for you guys at the Olympia last year. Mook, who's actually sitting in here, he filmed me last year. But obviously, not that it was a challenge, but I was coaching athletes, and none of those athletes represented the brand. So this year, we're going to do the same thing on a personal side of personal brand content. But then we're also going to be doing a series within Raw specific to Nick, which I think you guys are going to find cool and appreciate. So, all right. So New York Pro from my perspective. I honestly was very happy with the way that Nick looked and presented in New York. And obviously there were things that I think could have been better. There's always things that could have been better. But when I'm bringing an athlete into, actually, I'm sorry. I don't even think the camera's panned over to you. Guys, Nick is over here. Or maybe I just can't see him. Say hi, Nick.
Hi.
All right. Okay. Just making sure. I just didn't introduce him. So anyway, back to what I was saying. So I think when it comes to preparing a top Olympian for a qualifier, which this year, again, those of you guys that might be new to Nick's story. So Nick was not able to do the Olympia last year because of an injury that happened, let's say 2 weeks out. So we felt, as well as the IFBB head officials felt, that it was in Nick's best interest to re-qualify this year, just be fair and square, be straight up with it, and re-qualify for the Olympia, and we were all about it. So Nick decided to do his hometown show, and the show that means the most to him on a qualifier level, which is the New York Pro. And we set out to do that. I mean, when did we decide on that?
January?
Yeah, we set out to do that in January. And Nick and I, we talked about this a little bit on our video about Nick coming back to the brand, but I was out in Vegas for the Super Bowl, and Nick and I, we just had a really good heart-to-heart conversation about prep, about himself, about me, about struggles that we were both going through, for me, some of those struggles were within coaching and not finding my place in coaching, but just like feeling, I think, for lack of a better word, just feeling appreciated within coaching. Not necessarily from Nick's point of view, but just in general. And Nick got some things off of his chest. But anyway, it was just a really good time. We had plans to go see like the Super Bowl event together. That fell through. And anyway, we basically closed down Cheesecake Factory that night, and it was a lot of fun. But from that, we just grew like another level of closeness from that because, again, we were just really open and honest with each other for 3 to 4 hours. Anyway, Nick went up to his parents' house following that the next day, right?
Literally the next morning.
Yeah, the next day. Prep for the New York Pro. And I think Nick went through a lot of emotional things and just hard time and maybe the environment, honestly, in hindsight, wasn't the best for him. But Nick chose to do what he felt was best for his family. But I think it was a hard environment for him to prep in just because it wasn't the happiest place, right? Am I right in saying that?
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Because obviously going home, I had my own issues that I was dealing with at the time. My mother and father were dealing with the death of their family members at the time, and I just thought it was in my best interest to kind of go home, back to the roots, be there for them, and, prep for the New York. And in hindsight, seeing how bad it kind of was for them being home, I mean, yeah, for lack of a better word, it probably wasn't the best environment.
But yeah, you did what's best for the big picture.
But I did. I thought it was appropriate and right to be there for my parents while, prepping for the New York.
Yeah. And honestly, guys, I didn't really pick up on Nick's, just let's say, overall environment that he was in because our communication, again, we talked about this, but for the sake of the podcast, we communicate in 2 very clear ways.
Yes.
Everything related to bodybuilding is in WhatsApp. Everything related to life, and sometimes like the emotional, mental side of bodybuilding flows into text messages. But really, again, super positive. Even this morning, I basically gave him a clear objective for the next few days that I wanted to see. And some of that objective goes down to weight, and it's not necessarily a weight objective, but I think more so it's a look that we're going to see at that weight, and then once we're there, then I'll reassess. But again, Nick's like got it with like 12 exclamation points, like because he's a very optimistic, happy person, and that's his approach to life, especially when it comes to our relationship. So I think really the environment or what we started to realize we were entering into the week of New York actually started at a guest posing that we both went to for the Pittsburgh Pro. Mm-hmm. And this guest posing, again, and guys, I don't want to say this out of arrogance because it's not arrogance at all, but, I was taking a previous top 3 Olympian who had an injury that injury wasn't showing on his physique at all into a qualifier show in New York. And yes, we wanted to present a very good look. But I was by no means trying to bring an Olympia look to the New York Pro. And the reason why is because of what is utilized within bodybuilding. I want to make sure that my guys are the most fresh when the most amount is on the line, and that I'm just not running the candle, burning the candle empty all the time. So what my thought process was to bring a look that would cement a win in New York, and then really focus on what was our priority, being the Olympia.
Yes.
And it kind of just hit me in the face as we went to Pittsburgh that everybody had this expectation to see basically the best Nick ever on a Saturday night in Pittsburgh, a week out of New York. And really, I think that's when kind of the environment within our prep changed. And we, yeah. You want to talk about that some?
It was one of those things where I guess for me it did get in my head because it was like they expected, like you said, the best version of me, and after the guest posing it was more so the complete opposite. I remember having a conversation with a certain head judge who basically said I better pull off a miracle in a week, in so many words. And that was like an oh shit moment, like what's going on? And of course, me and you talking about it obviously reassured me, calmed me down, and put me back in the right mindset. But when you have these expectations on you and you don't deliver on them, the way people want you to, I don't care who you are.
It's hard.
It messes with you.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of what happened. So that final week, I just went to work and I really didn't say much and just kept my head down and we pulled it off, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So we ended up really pulling them down. And yeah, again, the environment was, it was a harder environment. I mean, we pushed, but I think that the perception of Nick going into, and this is just me talking out loud, the perception of Nick going into New York following his guest posing in Pittsburgh, even from the judges panel, was a little bit more negative than positive. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like we had to win back the judges in New York, that maybe some of their perception changed in Pittsburgh, and we had to earn that back. So anyway, coming into New York, again, we had a great time together. Nick's dad was around, you know, and basically cool. Nick's mom was sick. She was sick, so she came in late. But basically me, Nick, and his dad just hung out for a few days, got to spend a lot of good time together, which was great, you know, and I got to see a side of his dad that I haven't seen before. And I don't think that's because it wasn't there. It's just that we just had a lot of intentional time together. So that was really good. You know, going into prejudging, again, I was super confident. When Nick came out on stage, I was even more confident. Going through the posing rounds, I was very confident. And then when he stepped off stage, I still remained very confident. But then, like, again, the judges, the feedback following prejudging was like, hey, like, you better step on it. You know, again, like they were saying, like, you need to finish this. So, and that's when the pressure really falls on me, because there's nothing in those moments that Nick could do. And it really just comes down to me and my ability to make the right decisions and execute and make the right judgment calls. So that's what we did. You know, we went back and I actually brought him in a little bit tighter for finals. I remember I actually went for a run in the afternoon just because, like, I think the perception that I had going into this show and then the way that I truly felt leaving prejudging was one way, and then hearing the feedback from others was clearly another direction. Mm-hmm. And that was hard, you know, that was hard for me. So anyway, New York happens, we get the win. Obviously we solidified what the goal was, and that was to qualify for the Olympia. And then everything from that point moving forward has been focused on the Olympia. And, you know, Nick obviously has experienced, again, a tremendous amount of life change since that point, you know, but this time it's been different, because I think this time he's solidifying his future and he's just establishing his roots in a place, which I personally think is so important, not only for this prep, but every prep moving forward from here. You know, so let's just kind of break down post-Olympia, your feedback from the judges, and then we'll kind of go into this prep.
Well, yeah, so the feedback, you know, they basically, you know, said I need to come a lot tighter for the Olympia. I need to adjust some poses. And obviously the stomach control was a big thing. And I think, you know, we've been able to fix all those right now, being, what, by the time this comes out, it'll be like, what, 5 weeks out, I guess?
I'll put this out next week.
Yeah, it's about 5 weeks out. And, you know, post-Olympia, I mean, I came here for the grand opening, and, you know, I mean, you already discussed that I was going to come down here and do the Olympia prep. So coming down here for the grand opening, you know, it felt like home again. It was awesome. I felt, you know, like it was where I belonged. So then I had to go back home for a couple of weeks. I had to go to Arizona for the Olympia TV. And I had to do the gender reveal party for my brother. And then right after that, I just came back down here. Dom was nice enough to let me stay in one of his Airbnbs, and I ended up buying a house. And, you know, this is where I feel I'm the happiest. This is where I feel the most stability for myself. And I feel like this is the best prep environment. And obviously just, you know, again, being around you, being around the family, things of that nature, it's just natural for me. It makes me happy, and I just feel like the position we're at now in this prep, I feel like we're in a good spot. I'm happy, and I think this is where everyone will see what Nick truly is about.
Yeah, and so for me, like, you know, again, going back to New York and the X's and O's of, you know, I think a lot of you guys, especially with a top Olympian, you were like, okay, Matt, that's all, great story, but like, what exactly did you guys change? So again, immediately, it's important to me, especially with the direction that Nick's career is headed in, is that we're getting feedback from the right people. So we spoke to Tyler after the show, we spoke to Steve after the show, and we spoke to Bill after the show. And basically their feedback was all pretty similar with each other. And for me, the biggest thing that I took out of that is with the structural flaws that Nick has, or with the lack of structural gifts that some of his competitors have, however you want to look at it, we have to minimize the things, or we have to control the things within our control as much as possible. So I kind of like put them in my hierarchy of what's most important. And one of those things, or the first thing to me, was his stomach. And really making sure that we had a plan in place to just truly work on stomach control and training the stomach properly, training the transverse all the way through the prep, not having it just be something that we rely on through posing, but actually strengthening those muscles of his core through, let's say, non-conventional methods. I have a good relationship with Justin King. Justin King is somebody that does programming for Chris Bumstead as well. And again, he's super smart, and he's working together with us on a core routine, core program for Nick that you're doing, 4 days a week?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's 4 days a week, and Nick can go into some more information about that. So we addressed that right off the bat. Other things, that he was docked for was just some simple posing things, and I don't even think it was laziness. I think we just got into some habits over time that weren't the best. One of them being, and frustrating for me, I truly think from a muscularity standpoint that Nick has one of the best side chests in bodybuilding. Nick lost the side chests in that show because what they were saying is from the side. I'll just show you guys really quick, but he's bringing his shoulder up here versus getting more width. Definitely still huge. No, I'm not. So that being said, I mean, that's an easy fix, but that was something that he was really docked for. So, just being aware of the posing. And then honestly, I talked about this on Instagram this week. Another key player, especially in my opinion, that we brought into our team is you having access to Marlon.
Marlon.
And what Marlon's been able to do for you. So, and again, I want kind of Nick to talk about his ab training and also to talk about Marlon. But for you guys, from my perspective, Marlon, what is so great about Marlon, he's a chiropractor, he has a PEMF machine, and he's just truly passionate about massage work, is he's one of the first massage therapists I've ever worked with that I never felt like I was on an hourglass winding down when I was on his massage table. If he finds an issue, he literally stays on that issue until it's fixed. It could take 5 minutes. It could take 25 minutes. But if it takes 25 minutes, you'd only have 35 minutes left. He goes through all of your issues every single time, and then also goes through, extra things to help, whether that be, some stretching on your own, or, hey, buy this tool off of Amazon, utilize this on the days that I'm not here. He's fantastic. And then a PEMF machine, for those of you guys that don't know, I'm not going to go into the scientific detail of it, but it just really allows the muscle to open up, especially an extra tight muscle. What I noticed from it is as he's running his hand with a PEMF over you, if something is resistant to allowing his hand to actually get in, the longer he stays on that with the PEMF current, that muscle just slowly starts to relax. And then he can work through it. Because what I think is an issue a lot of times with massage work is that as they're driving into you, if your body's fighting back, that's not allowing recovery to happen. So you have to get the tension out of that muscle to then allow the muscle to be worked. And that's where I think the PEMF machine does so well. And I've seen it both in Nick's physique, Nick's legs specifically, his back specifically. Brett has had a little bit of a longer amount of time with Marlon, and I think it's honestly transforming his whole look. So just bringing him in as a part of the team has been an awesome thing, for this prep.
Yeah, so with Justin, obviously you hooked me up with Justin, and he's been a huge, I would say, part of this prep for us. The type of exercises he has me do, some of them are really complicated to say, but it's a lot of stability stuff, and I think it is really, really overall has helped tightening my core. I mean, I'll be honest, it's 4 days a week, but sometimes I'll do like almost every day. Because I'm also the type of person, if I feel something's working, I'm just going to keep doing it. And I'm very thankful for that, to have him in the corner to help a lot, because I truly believe my stomach for the Olympia is going to be dramatically different than what it was at New York, than what it was, at last year's or the year before's Olympia. So I'm very confident in what that's going to look like. And Marlon has put me through so much pain, but it has been extremely beneficial. He has opened up my legs to where I think my legs are now probably the biggest they've been right now, especially being this close to a show. I think my lat spreads have improved dramatically because of him and the way he's able to just open up my lats and my shoulders and everything else. And like you said, and overall, honestly, they're both just great individuals, and I'm just really happy to have them in our corners.
Yeah, and that's another part of them too, is they're just good dudes, and I think when it comes to having a team and putting a team together, it's the guys that you can hang out with and converse with and be relational with outside of what has to happen to execute a plan, that I think is so important. That, and especially for Nick, like he's talked a lot about trusting or lack of trust for people and just comfortability around other people, and those are two guys that you can be comfortable around. And again, they're super passionate. You can tell when somebody cares and when somebody doesn't. And it's very evident that they both care. So that's been a big part of our prep. Another big part of the prep for me, is just this on-off switch with Nick, because Nick he's always on. So for me, what I try to do is I just try to pull back a little bit in terms of like my watching over him, for lack of a better word. Because when it's time to go and when it's time to really be like meticulous in every single detail, I don't want Nick entering into that environment or that part of prep already feeling the pressure of the prep. So this period after New York, I purposely kind of eased off, and we had more free meals, and there's a little bit less like direction, and that lack of direction or less direction, it's not because I am being lazy or because I want Nick to feel like I'm not giving him direction. It's just, again, because
life.
Yeah, he in himself is so perfect in his execution that me pulling back on the amount of communication, I think, just allows your brain to just
shut off.
Exactly. Yeah. And for him, I just think that's so important, just to have that phase where he's not 110% in. So that way, because he is so in all the time, that fuse just doesn't start to like become less and less dim. So really, honestly, we kind of kicked it up 12 weeks out.
Yeah.
And by kicked it up, again, like it wasn't like Nick doesn't go off his diet. The diet was set from day one. And some of the parts of this, guys, like we've been dieting, now together since 2018. So talking about, we're very simple in the approach. Very simple. It's a lot of rice. The fruit, there's fruit in, and then the fruit starts to taper down. And really, I am not an anti-fruit person. But when it comes to satiety from food, as you get more hungry, fruit is a more dense carbohydrate option, and most options other than maybe strawberries. So I'm just going to pull the fruit back so that way they can have more rice and just feel more satiety from the rice. But I am very pro fruit as long as we can keep it in during the prep. Protein sources are super simple. We don't use artificial sweeteners. We don't use whey protein isolate. We are obviously affiliated with Raw, and I will gladly say that we don't use it. And it's not because I don't believe in the product. It's just because that's what we've done for so long, and I would prefer to just use whole food sources with you as much as possible.
Yeah.
So again, when it comes to my approach to prepping Nick from a food perspective, just try to get the most out of the least. We hit a few days of a true deficit, true fat loss phase. And then as often as possible, we try to keep refeeds in and around legs. Mm-hmm. And then what I also try to do, especially keeping everything in mind, being digestibility of food, his midsection control, just overall not stressing his digestive system. rather than learning and seeing how much food we can get away with, during a day, I set what I feel is a really good amount of food for like a refeed type day for him. And then once we see that he's really starting to handle that well, I'll just extend the refeed period. So rather than adding more and more food to one day, we'll go through one day and then I'll add food to the next day. And that's something that's worked really well. So it might start off where, he refeeds meals 1 through 5 in a day. And then we see what his weight trend is the next day. And then I might add meals 1 through 5 on day 1, 1 through 3 on day 2. And then we just continue this cyclical pattern of just short phases of maintaining weight, and then a few days of a deficit, and then maintain, drive it back up a little bit, go back into a deficit. And that's really our approach. We haven't touched cardio at all.
30 minutes.
Yeah, the cardio has been set the whole prep, so
minutes.
30 minutes 5 times a week. And, for me, again, looking at his legs and what I feel the improvements are from what Marlon's been able to do in opening them up, I would rather keep that stress of cardio down. And if we need to drive more fat loss, I'm just going to pull the food a little bit more, just because, again, and also, too, knowing how hard Nick trains and the effort he puts into individual sets, I can always count on that. So it's not like we're having, inconsistent variables of effort and output. We're not having inconsistent variables of days where he feels bad for himself, so volume is being toggled up and down. So all these things are always just set. So it's like I really only have to control a certain few variables because the rest is just it's on autopilot, honestly.
I feel like I live on autopilot.
Yeah.
Which, listen, people get on me for that. They're like, oh, do you ever turn it off? Do you ever turn it off? And it's honestly, living this particular way is what makes me happy. I do think after a show, as you addressed, coming, pumping the brakes a little bit is needed. And I know that you do that, and I thoroughly enjoy it because it does allow for a little freedom. It allows, for more of a life to hang out with people, have a little free meals, and be able to enjoy that. But I love to be in a structure. I live off of structure, and I enjoy it. And I think me living my life that way just makes our preps just that much easier, to be honest.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've seen since Nick's been back here that I appreciate is just like you're starting to see Nick's maturity as an athlete. Because, guys, in so many ways, bodybuilding is it's not very hard. And I think so many individuals just really overcomplicate it. Really, I mean, what is it? It's giving everything you have to a training session once a day. I think that there's actually a benefit to being truly engaged during cardio sessions. And focusing on what you're doing during those cardio sessions. But let's say for most people that comes out to 2.5 hours max a day for most of a prep. And then the rest of the day, what is that focused on? So like, why do you have to be so hyper focused on, I'm in contest prep, I'm going to be miserable, or, I can't schedule anything during my day. It just doesn't have to be that way, and the longer that we've worked together and the more maturity I see out of Nick, like he's just handling things well. Again, obviously, I think the environment for him really matters. He's super happy. I honestly, even in the midst of some things going on right now, I haven't seen he's not snapped. He hasn't had a bad day. He's just now starting to say, in the afternoon, he's more fatigued, but also at this point, you should be, But yeah, I mean, I'm really, really happy with how this prep has gone. And again, I think from here, kind of getting you guys caught up, we can go into more finer details from this point moving forward in a few other episodes, 1 or 2. We were called in today. I'll just be honest. We were called in today to do a prediction show for you guys about the Olympia. And I just feel weird about doing that, because we are actively competing, me as a coach, Nick as an athlete, in the Olympia. So I feel like it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like we regardless of what we say, we're going to either be wrong in people's eyes or right in people's eyes. But obviously, the focus of this prep for us is to win, and nothing short of that, and I'll stand on that. Granted, I think that there's 2 men in front of Nick right now that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. I also have a tremendous amount of respect for their coach, and that is in Derek and Hadi. Both are Olympia champions, and I don't think that we can discredit either of them. I honestly think in my heart of hearts, this is what I would love. Like, ultimately, I would love to see Nick win the Olympia this year. I would be equally as happy, honestly, if not more happy, if Nick and Hadi ended up being 1 and 2 if we bring in Nick, as I know we can bring him in. Because, and Nick and I have had this conversation in private many times, on any given day right now, I still believe that Hadi Chupan is the best bodybuilder in the open. That doesn't mean that I don't think Nick can beat him, but I don't feel that we can beat a absolutely perfect Hadi yet. You know, last year, for example, at the Olympia, he wasn't perfect. At the Arnold, Nick and I were talking, that was darn near perfect.
That was almost
so
perfection.
I think Nick and I think, you know, that's another thing, important part of our relationship. I think we both are on the same page there, is like understanding that really for us, more than anything, one, I want to get him on stage this year. That's super important. And I say that lightly, but like I mean it, because like that was emotionally really hard last year.
Yeah.
And two, it's truly bringing Nick's best, peaking him the best that I can possibly peak him, nailing that peak on Friday night, and then letting the cards fall where they are, you know, and really just if Nick's getting better and we lose to a better bodybuilder, I'm okay with that.
Me too, especially Hadi.
Yeah, I mean, he's older, he's got more muscle maturity.
Grainy.
We just have to be realistic about it. And again, and that's not discrediting Derek. I honestly think Derek has the best front double bicep and the best back double bicep in bodybuilding, period. I think where Derek loses it on his side shots, on his ab and thigh, and on his most muscular. That's where I think that he gets beat.
Yeah.
So, and that's just me being real about where I think he's at. But again, when he opens up in that front double, it captures everybody's attention. And then when he turns around and does the back double, once again, he steals the show.
Yeah.
So it's just about knowing and being aware of those things, and then just making sure that we can close the gap in other areas. And that's what our focus is on.
Yeah.
So that's about as honest of a prediction as I can give you. And outside of that, I'm not focused on anybody else. I even said to Nick, I said, if we end up doing this prediction show, I hope we don't go too deep, because I don't even know how many I can say. So, Mook, got any questions for us?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Where do you draw the line between pushing an athlete to the limits and protecting the long-term health and well-being?
Oh, interesting.
Where do I draw the lines? In relation to Nick specifically, or just relation to athletes in general? So I think drawing the line needs to be defined as what is the goal at hand, what's realistic, and then what is the financial ramifications that that athlete potentially has. So my line, and I think you guys are going to all assume this all revolves around drug use, and it doesn't, but the priority of Nick and Sean winning the Olympia and what that does to their career, what that does to their endorsement deals, what that does to their financial success, both now and also future, that's a big deal to me. Because this is how they provide for their family, this is how they provide for themselves, and there's nothing else on the table right now other than this. So when it comes to pushing an athlete, I'm going to push them a lot, because it matters that much more. You know, now granted, if I have a dad who says that they're willing to give everything, but has a family at home, has a full-time job, has expectations outside of that job, I'm going to kind of be the governor on what that everything looks like for that dad. And I might not say that to him, but the level of which I'm going to push that person, knowing everything else they have on their plate, and the reality of the situation being that bodybuilding isn't putting food on the table for them, versus Nick, who I know, Sean, who I know bodybuilding is putting food on the table for them. And I also know outside of their cardio, their posing, and their training, they have nothing to do the rest of the day. I'm going to push that individual harder, because I honestly could care less if they don't have any energy. But for the dad who has a family, who needs to be engaged and who needs to work and not get fired from his job, I might consider not pushing that person as hard. And that's me just looking at the big scope of what's going on, rather than just that person saying, hey, I'm willing to die for bodybuilding. Well, are you really? And even if you are, like, is that the right decision?
Nick, success in bodybuilding is often measured by titles and trophies. How do you personally define success beyond this stage?
Well, I will always say, trophies is one of the reasons, but I think also who you are as a person outside of those wins determines your success. How you treat others can also determine your success. And I don't want to go down in history as, however many Olympias I win, and that's it. And I certainly don't want to be remembered as, well, for example, we'll just throw a number out, 5-time Mr. Olympia, but he was a dick. I know what it's like to look up to people, to certain bodybuilders, and be let down, and I would never do that, to anybody else, that looks up to me. So I think outside of trophies and winning the big shows, I think just being a very proper role model to people measures a higher success to me.
I think a great example of this is Jay Cutler, because he
Yes.
doesn't have the most titles, but I would still say to this day he's the most popular bodybuilder that there is. And I would say probably, again, I don't know, I'm not looking at his bank account, but I would say he's probably the most successful financially. And also, he still goes out of his way to show people that he cares. For example, every year on my birthday, I get a video from him, with him wishing me a happy birthday. And I'm not one of his best friends, and I know that, but yet he still thinks enough of me to give me the time of day to do that. And that means a lot to me, because Jay is somebody that I looked up to for years, and I've had the opportunity now to call Jay a friend and been in his home and have spent time with him. But that's the type of reputation that Jay leaves on people, and that's super important, And granted, he doesn't have 8 Olympia titles or 7 Olympia titles. He's got 4. But yet, when it comes to like real success in terms of life, I would say that he's got it.
I agree. He is my favorite bodybuilder. So.
And how do you feel about the impact you have on younger athletes looking up to you? And do you feel responsibility towards them?
Is that for me or him?
You said something about role model.
Yeah, I don't feel like I take on a responsibility per se, but I do know the type of, I guess, inspiration, motivation I give to people. So I do take on to role to make sure that I give the best advice to people that I can. And when people, want to come up to me and talk to me, I make sure I give that time. Obviously when I'm training, respect my time. But outside of that, anyone that wants to come up to me, I make sure that their time is valued. I make sure that whoever I'm talking to feels important, just like Jay. I want to leave that, mark on them, to let, and I just think that's just as very important.
What sacrifices have you made that were the hardest to accept, and do you ever question if they were worth it?
Sacrifices I've made within coaching. And yeah, this is, going back to that conversation I had with Nick at Cheesecake Factory, and, just like a lot of self-evaluation that I had after this year revolved around the time and who I'm giving my time to, and do those people appreciate and value my time. Because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I have 3 people at home that desire to have more time with me. And I want to make sure that within the time that I have, that I'm giving them everything that they need, and really, and guys, this like hit me a few years back, but the hard part about coaching is regardless of the person that you are or what you do or the impact that you have, ultimately coaching is always going to be a customer service based industry, and it's always going to be an industry of what have you done for me lately. That's the bottom line. And I understand that that's part of the job. The job is we are hired or we are brought on to do a task, and we are going to be judged based off of our ability to execute on that task or not. But a few years ago, when it comes to time, and again, I'm being truly transparent, and if some of the people that are, listening to this were involved in this. That's not the point of this, but it's just really like me realizing and I think maturing. But for example, for those of you guys that don't know, I missed the birth of Dallas by a few hours. I was actually at the Olympia in 2017 when Jordan went into labor. She tried to hold off as long as she could. She went into labor at 3 a.m. in the morning. It was 12 o'clock in Vegas, and I wasn't able to get back. So he was born, I think, at 1:15, 1:13 in the afternoon, or 1:48. Well, they were born around the same time. And I got back around 3:30. So I missed that. That's something that I can't ever get back, and I think that's something that Jordan's forgiven me for, but we've had to work through that a lot in our marriage just because she was hurt, and rightfully so. So that was one thing that I missed. And then you would think that I would learn from that. But I don't think that I really did, So then again, when Walker was born, I didn't miss it. I was there, but Walker was born in between USA's, and guys, I'm sorry, this is getting this is getting intense, but Walker was born in between USA's and the Tampa Pro. And this was at a point in my coaching career where I was very busy. I think I had 6 people in USA's, and I had 5 people in the Tampa Pro. So Jordan, on her own, chose to be induced into labor. I believe it was on a Wednesday, so that way she knew that I could be there. So what I'm getting at in this is all 6 of those people that I had in USA's are no longer in my life. All 5 of the people that I had in the Tampa Pro are no longer in my life. The people that are in my life are Jordan, Walker, and Dallas. But yet, truly, if I'm being honest with myself, they weren't prioritized during some of the most crucial, important times of their own lives, or where Jordan needed me most emotionally, physically, spiritually, all the above. So like this really hit me more so than any the past 2 years. And this is honestly, this isn't out of guilt, like because I love being a dad. But I want to have the opportunity to be a father and go through that whole experience one more time, because now I truly understand it and I want to get it right, and I want to just basically turn my phone off when we walk into the hospital and turn it back on when we leave. But that's something that sits with me, and those are choices that I made that will forever be with me. And again, it's not like I didn't make an impact in those people's lives. They didn't do well on the show, but the reality of the situation is that they're all gone, and I didn't give time to the people that are truly present for me, and the people that want the best for me, and the people that love me the most. So in terms of sacrifice, I think those are the 2 of the biggest sacrifices that I made, but I still make sacrifices all the time, and a part of that, I think my desire to do so well is very hard for me to just shut this thing off. It's very hard. If I know that I have text messages or I have people waiting on me, I can't ignore that. Or if I can, like my mind's not truly present in the situation that I'm on, So I know that my boys and Jordan still have to deal with that today. And this isn't at this point in my life, guys, this isn't just related to coaching. It's also related to things that we have going on within the company that I don't want to leave people here hanging either. So sacrifice is a big part of success, and sacrifice is a big part of obviously accomplishing great things, but at what cost, And I think as of late, I've really started to realize what that cost looks like. And, those are things that I can't get back. So
I don't think I have like one standout sacrifices. It's kind of like what Matt said. We just kind of make sacrifices every day for the success that we have. For me, I just think it's the older I've gotten, I just think I value my time, just like he said, a lot more than I did when I was younger, and who's in it and who's not. And I just feel as I'm getting older, I want to just be able to give more time to the people that I truly care about and the ones that truly give me their time, because I just think, that's extremely important now. And, my goal now is, even with how strict and how hardcore I am, I don't want to miss out, on certain events that I get invited to, like, Matt's family's events. If he invites me, I don't want to miss out on those. Holidays with my family, I don't want to miss out on those. Even if I am in a prep, obviously if I'm prepping for the Arnold or the Olympia, obviously I can't eat, but like just to be present with them and enjoy those times with them, because your parents aren't getting any older. We're not getting any younger. So I just think it's very important through that career that I have to really just value and appreciate the times with your loved ones and not skip out on them.
The question I'm trying to ask is, what are you doing to kind of implement certain things so that you are more present when you're at home?
Yeah, so I mean, it's boundaries now, that I set up, and again, I'm very aware of how my mind operates. So one of the things that I try to do a better job of is disconnecting from my phone. So for example, like when I walk in the house, our life this past month has kind of been a little chaotic because the boys have been playing football. But typically what our routine is we have dinner by 6:30. So I walk in the house and I put my phone on one of the focus modes, where basically like a few select people can get in touch with me. My parents can get in touch with me, and I have my phone on the charger. And then the focus mode is linked up to my watch. So if one of those few people are texting me, it goes here. And then obviously I have my sleep set up there. But it's just trying to be disconnected and trying to be more present with the boys, and just setting up boundaries around that, but I have to be intentional to set up those boundaries. I have to be intentional to say no to things. I have to be intentional to set up the focuses on my phone so that way I'm not, distracted. And those are the things that I'm putting into place to try to be better at those things, or to not miss out as much. And again, I'll vouch for Nick too. I have seen this shift in him. Like the boys have a game on Saturday. He's coming to the game, and he committed to that last week. And even before they started playing, he's like, please let me know their schedule. And I don't know if Nick would have been like that a few years ago,
No.
Yeah.
I know for a fact.
He'll be like, I'll see you after the Olympia.
Yeah.
Hopefully they make it to the playoffs so I can see a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that. And a few weeks ago, I was getting a tattoo done, and he came and hung out like all afternoon. And I've also seen, one of my biggest gripes about Nick in the past. So we're getting like really personal now.
That's all right.
He's been very connected to just like flipping his phone nonstop. And I have not seen that since he's been back in Florida. I mean, I honestly haven't.
I try to stay off.
And he had mentioned a situation where he was in an environment where other people were doing that, and I think it started to bother him. So I think he's more aware of it now. But again, I will say, most of the time when I see him now, his phone's upside down, and that's not the Nick that I used to hang around. So I just am applauding you for doing.
Well, thank you. Because it's like I said, bro. I learned a lot from you, and it's like I know how bad social media could be. I mean, it wrecked me at one point, and yeah, I have gone through certain situations where like there would be a gathering, and everyone's it's just like this, and it's just like that bothered me because I think it bothered me more not because of what I was seeing, but because I used to be like that. And it just kind of opened my eyes to where like, wow, people probably think like I'm an asshole on my phone this whole time while we're all in a gather. So I just said, you know what? Like if I'm at home, sure, I'll go on it, I'll look at it. What else am I gonna do? Watch TV, whatever. But if I'm out in public, if I'm, hanging out with friends or whatnot, my job is to just not even touch it. I don't want to look at it. Even like if I go out to dinner, I don't really even post stories anymore because I won't want to look at my phone. I just want to be in the moment and just enjoy it and just let that be that.
All right, guys. So again, I'm promising that we'll at least do one more of these.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, two. And then you'll get a lot of us the week of the Olympia for sure, which I'm excited about. So yeah, Nick and I are going to leave on a Sunday. We'll get to Vegas. We'll set up. Actually, I had somebody reach out to me about a schedule, so I actually wrote it on paper, which kind of made it feel real. But we'll go through training Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday together. Wednesday will also be the athletes meeting. Thursday will be the press conference. It will also be the meet and greet. It will also be their tanning. Potentially, it will be a very short workout session for Nick. Definitely nothing for Sean. and then the boys both go on Friday. You know, so my focus on Friday morning will be Sean. He'll compete in prejudging, and then I'll get back, and then I'll focus on both of them. Sean will have finals. After his finals, Nick will go, and then Saturday my focus will be on Nick, and we will just do whatever we got to do to be the best we can possibly be. So that's where we're at.
That's it.
Thanks, guys.